Thank everyone for attending. I mentioned just before you got in that you have a little presentation you want to show us. So I won't take up the floor. I know I've sent out a bunch of messages about who you are and what you have done and are doing. So why don't you take it away, Darcy?
Yeah, sure. So let me share my screen. All right. So everybody see the screen there okay?
Yep.
Excellent. Thank you, Naomi. All right, so my name is Darcy Lussier, and yeah, thanks very much for having me. I'm really excited actually to talk to you all as a Red River College grad myself. I look forward to being able to connect back with students back at the college. I wanted to, before we got into the questions, and it sounds like there's a lot of good questions that are coming, I want to give you a bit of my background and a little bit of what my career has looked like over the last, 20 years now, I guess. And then also just, I want to think of some sort of, a little bit of golden nuggets maybe that I can impart on you ahead of the questions that you have. And then we can take the conversation from there. So, so my career has been pretty. It's been really amazing. So I graduated in 2021 from Red River. So I've been in the industry about 20 years, and I've had the opportunity to work with a number of different types of organizations, whether it was product-based companies, consulting companies, or public sector like Winnipeg Police Service or MASC. And I've seen a wide variety of different types of businesses, whether it was the companies I was working at or companies I was doing consulting with. And the first 10 years was pretty much software development. So software developer, then into like team lead roles, then architect roles. And then this last 10 years has been a lot more around solution and enterprise architecture and engaging with executive levels on strategy and longer term IT planning. And then currently I'm a partner technology strategist with Microsoft Canada. And in addition to the actual work stuff that I've done, community's been a really big part of my career as well. So shortly after graduating, I started getting involved with some of the user group communities here in Winnipeg, specifically the Winnipeg.net user group, which now is known as the Full Stack Manitoba group. It started just by attending, then doing some speaking, and then eventually joining the board and actually helping run the user group. That sort of led me to start running for a number of years. We had the Winnipeg Code Camp that I organized, which was basically like a free one-day conference. We actually held it at the Red River Princess Street campus. And people could just show up. We had local people from the community that would speak on a wide range of topics. And that sort of, again, progressed to where in 2010, I started running my own software conference called Prairie Devcon, which runs in Regina and Winnipeg and brings in speakers from all over North America to those cities to speak on a wide variety of topics. And yeah, it's been going on. Well, it would have still been going on except for COVID, but we're doing it annually pretty much before that. Kind of in parallel with all of that was also getting involved with an organization called INETA, which stood for the International .NET Association. And this was a group that was sprung up in the early days of .NET, so the early 2000s. And it got funding to promote user group development and provide speakers and food and that type of thing for these events. So what that allowed me to do was connect to a wider community across Canada. That eventually led me into the Microsoft MVP program, which is an award program Microsoft does for people who are very active in the community. So think blogging, videos, speaking, that type of thing. And that further pushed my network into product groups at Microsoft and other professionals across not just North America but across the world. And then the regional director program was another program I was part of that allowed me to have a little bit more interaction, more at the executive level of people who are owning companies or leading companies, and got some pretty cool perks. Like our group had a 30-minute one-on-one at one conference with Satya Nadella, who's the CEO of Microsoft. So all of those sort of three things at the bottom kind of help fuel the thing, Prairie Devcon and the community on the top, and really helped strengthen my network, which has served me very well to today. And there's a reason I bring this up, and we get into sort of some of the things that I want to share with you afterwards. And then the last thing, of course, I want to mention is Red River College. So I graduated, like I said, from the Information Systems Technology program in 2001. And the more that things change, the more things stay the same as well. So Steve Lawrence taught me HTML and CSS. David Jones, I think, is still there. He taught me Windows and Linux. And in between teaching networking, Fred Petrash would yell at us for using Napster on the college network. So, it's good to see a bunch of faces that are still there and still contributing into Red River College and seeing what their roles are like. So, I'm super excited to be talking to you today. I can't wait to hear the questions you have, but I did want to share, if I look back at my career and what are the things that I would want to share with you as soon to be new grads from the program. The first thing I would say is we have this saying at Microsoft that Satch has really started over the last couple of years to really reiterate, and that's to be a learn-it-all and not a know-it-all. And things in IT are going to change very fast. I took a look at the course list for the BIT program and the different technologies that you're learning and the things that are there, and it's exciting because I've seen how the program has evolved. And seeing how they've been integrating some new technologies into some different things from when I was in there, and that's good because and 10 years later, now cloud emerges, right? So there's always going to be something new to learn. You will never stop learning in this industry. You really need to prepare yourself to be lifetime learners. And it's what college does is it really gives you a great opportunity to really understand how you best learn. What are the techniques? What are the approaches that you learn best with, and continue to develop those after college, because the fire hose never gets turned off. There's always going to be new things to pick up. The other thing I want to mention is that teamwork is really valued, but not so much heroism. There used to be this old stereotype of a developer that would sit in a room in the dark with just a keyboard and the mouse and the screen, and requirements would get slid under the door, and they would develop and push out code, and that was it. That's not IT anymore. IT today is extremely collaborative. It involves people on a typical IT project. It's not just IT, it's the business, it's end users, it's stakeholders, it's executive, it's training, it's sometimes, depending on the type of system, it might be media and communications. So you have to get into this mindset that you will be working as part of a team, and you need to be able to be a good team player. Now, what's funny is that college sort of goes against that, right? You do your own work, you do your own homework, you do your own projects, you write your own tests, and there's reasons for that. They want to, you want to come out of college ensuring that you have a grasp of certain core concepts. But if you look at what industry is really like, whether it's open source software and how it's encouraged to share that. You look at things like GitHub, you look at Stack Overflow, where people are posting questions and posting answers. Google will be part of your life moving forward. The best developers I know, we joke about, Googles per minute or Googles per hour, because you have to rely on a greater community to succeed within IT. It's not something that individuals have to carry the load with. So get comfortable working with others, helping others, relying on others. And this plays into that whole thing of being a learn-it-all, not a know-it-all. You should be looking to learn from others the same way others hopefully are looking to learn from you and what you have to share. And then the last thing I want to mention is just to think big. You're going to be graduating at an amazing time in technology. Cloud computing, mobile device prevalence, Internet of Things, AI, machine learning, 5G, especially for us in the prairies, reliable rural internet access with some of the Starlink stuff that's happening. This is all setting the stage for a really amazing decade, not just locally here, but also around the world. And so you're coming at a great time. I mean, I remember when when we graduated, Visual Source Safe and maybe one other option was it for source control, right? Or maybe you just stored it on a network share. And now you've got GitHub, or now you've got all these different development pipeline tools that are out there, or DevOps pipeline tools out there that you can leverage. It's just a different world. And there's really big problems to solve. And we need really good technology folks to help solve these. So as you leave here, as you leave the college and enter the industry, definitely be thinking big. So that's kind of just a little bit about me and just some thoughts that I had, but I would love to hear about your experiences and the questions that you have.
Thank you, Darcy. A quick thing, we're actually having a bit of an embarrassment of riches right now. We have so many people trying to get into our room at once. We've maxed out. So I think everyone who has a camera on, please turn it off. This is a good problem to have. I'm glad to have it. But unfortunately, let's try no cameras just for a moment, just so everyone who wants to talk to you can get in.
Awesome, yeah.
Looks like we may have resolved that. All right.
Okay, so how do you want to do the questions?
Well, I have a couple, and while I'm speaking, if anyone has any questions, please put them into the general chat channel or ask to speak, and we'll get you the floor right away. But I'll start off right away. We have a question from NatMesh, who asked, how do you or how does your team identify talent when hiring, and what tips would you have for someone who is job searching?
Oh boy. So this is actually a topic that's come up quite a bit in the industry, because every company is going to have a different way that they approach how they hire, and part of that has to do with the culture of the company. So to give you an example, I applied to one company where I worked, and they really had it in them that they really wanted, the best of the best rock star developers. And so it was literally a gauntlet. They brought you into the room. They had pretty much all the employees come in, sit in a semicircle around you, and they would just rapid fire all sorts of questions to see how you did, like how you responded, how you answered them. You were given a whiteboard, and then based on that, they took the approach of, because you had to work with these people, they should have a say in whether or not you got hired. I also have worked at places where the interview process was more, a little bit more structured, where you had multiple interviews with different people from the organization, depending on what the role was and who they were. So, with Microsoft specifically, I can speak with, to what my interview experience was like. It was very similar to that. It was, getting my resume in front of the right person and having them get me into the queue, and then having basically just different conversations, right? But as you're entering the industry, it's part of what I would really recommend is, depending on what when you have a company in mind that you're going to apply to, look at sites like Glassdoor, and Glassdoor is kind of the best one that comes to mind, where they'll actually have things like, feedback from people who have done interviews there to say, what was the interview process like? And that'll give you some idea on what it is that they're doing. And the unfortunate part is, you might get questions like, and I did too, why is a manhole round? Or luckily I haven't had them, but I do know of friends who still get things like, write a bubble sort algorithm on a whiteboard or something like that. And then there's another discussion to have about whether or not you want to work at some of the places that do those type of things.
Well, here's a second part to that question. What qualities about yourself helped you stand out and land your first position? Remember?
So I had the good fortune to have a really good CoOp placement. The company that I worked at that CoOp placement was basically like a a startup mode, writing software. They eventually actually got bought and consumed into what's now IQ Metrics. And interestingly enough, one of the people that I worked with back then is still working at IQ Metrics now. So yeah, I think that coming into industry for the first time, you really want to highlight your ability, whether it's in your school projects, side projects. And so this is where GitHub comes into play, or similar type of things where you can sort of show, whether it's activity in projects or your own personal work that you've done that you're really excited about or proud with. And then also, take advantage of this, of your co-op position. I think, Adam, are you currently in co-op right now for this term?
No, I'm still a little ways away. Co-op is term 4, and I'm in my second term. And
is there an intake right now that's in co-op though?
We probably have. I know we have at least a few people here who should be in the intake process.
So really leverage your co-op experience, make the most out of it. Really endear yourself to your manager and your boss so that they'll give you good reference, and leverage that to try and get that first gig once you're out.
Great, thank you. So we had Stephen asked, how did you find your RRC computer education compare to the traditional computer science degrees from U of M? I know we've heard that in the past, that we come out with a little more hands-on skills from Red River, and the traditional university comp sci degrees are a little more theory. Have you had any experience with that in industry?
Yeah, I think so. That's a valid thing, and to be clear, we need both. We need. It's not really. There's a lot of comparisons, and I remember getting into like really good arguments with people. Some who felt very strongly, we must hire somebody with a degree from university, and more that's changing in the industry. I mean, especially in the United States. There's a big movement around the idea of coding boot camps, which has its own discussion points. But this idea that, people are only going in for like 1 or 2 month boot camps, coming out and then trying to find a job. So, the reality is we are not a regulated industry like engineering or like structural engineering or, medicine or anything like that. So we're still kind of trying to find our way with it. There are good things about going with the university program. My own personal experience, though, is that by going to Red River, I came out being able to do hands-on keyboard work very quickly. And I also got a good wide exposure to different technologies. Whereas if you're in university, you're going to get exposed to a different level of things. Because I've had this conversation with friends, and they talk about how, they did... we built our own, CPU type stuff. Like they're dealing with like lower level things. Whereas we're coming in saying we want to use technology to solve business problems as quickly as possible. So I think both have their merits. I think that, honestly, coming out of university or coming out of Red River College, that is just the starting point, and then it's really up to you on where you want to take your career from there. I mean, I know people who have gone to university and they've had amazing careers. I know people who have gone to university and their careers stalled, and yet people from Red River College that I graduated with are doing fantastic. So yeah, it's I would still say that Red River is a fantastic option, and it's not a lesser than to university. I think it's on par.
Great, thank you. Justin's here asking, I know cloud technologies were mentioned earlier in your presentation. Would the Azure certification be worth getting and spending time on?
So as a Microsoft employee, I will say absolutely yes. But actually, Justin, I appreciate you bringing this up, because that was one thing that I noticed in looking at the BIT courses. Is there's a little bit of AWS in there around IoT, but and a little bit of cloud that's kind of sprinkled through in, which is great. The best thing you can do for preparing, sort of like the next level of self-study that you can do, is starting to learn about cloud technologies. And to be honest, who you end up working with is really going to be the one that determines, whether they're using AWS, Google Cloud, or Azure. I mean, those are the big three really that you'll see in industry, especially in Winnipeg. I think if you start learning any of those, it's a good thing, because cloud, how you develop in cloud, how you deploy infrastructure in cloud, all of it is so different than the traditional software model of desktop and even web development as we used to do it. So, I'm really big on encouraging people to learn cloud, regardless of which platform it is.
Yeah, that definitely seems to be an up in the field of the future in a lot of ways. So this is a question that I have talking about personal projects. What's the area in this field that you're most curious about going forward? Like, if you do a personal project, what is it focused on? What are you working on?
If I'm doing personal project and personal study, it's around data warehousing and data science. And I noticed that was actually one of the electives, I think. And if I would really encourage everybody to consider that elective. One of the things that I'm seeing, so in my role at Microsoft, what I do as a partner technology strategist is Microsoft has a partner model, right? And so what that means is that there's a whole bunch of companies out there that say, hey, we see value in partnering with Microsoft, where we're going to go all in on Microsoft technologies and cloud and everything. But in the flip side of that is Microsoft comes along these partners and does co-sell opportunities, so more on the business side and helping these companies get visibility in sales. And so I work with a wide variety of companies across Canada that are in a lot of different interesting spaces, whether it's fintech or security or all these things. And the common denominator across all of these companies is we have all of this data and we have no good way of analyzing it or organizing it. And so the conversations that I have with a lot of these companies are, how are we going to set up your data warehouse? How are we going to get your data into data lakes? How are you going to set up analysis for it? And so there's a huge need out there. And that doesn't even, that's just getting the data sort of in place and ready. And then there's a whole conversation around how do you apply AI and machine learning to this data once you have it, so that you can actually, run models and make it, interactive and action items and everything else. So if there's one area that's really, really needed in the industry right now, it's around big data and data warehousing.
That's very interesting. My next question, I mean, you kind of answered it now, but if you want to elaborate, what electives in your ISP program stand out as being really valuable or even really interesting to you?
Oh, the electives. Like from my IST program?
Yeah, back when you went to school in early 2000s.
Oh gosh, nothing, very few of that exist anymore. It's kind of funny. Like my electives, it was a bit of a different format, I think, than now, because the way it worked for us was everybody took the same courses, so that's still the same. But then it was you either did web, networking, or programming. E-commerce, they called it. And we didn't really have electives. It was just each stream had their own thing. But I will say this. At the time, there was a networking course that was part of the e-commerce stream. And I didn't really get it back. Like I was like, I'm in e-commerce, I'm doing web development. Why do I have to learn about this low-level networking stuff? And this kind of builds on Justin's question, and the importance of understanding cloud. Is it used to be that you were split that way. If you were a developer, you did programming. If you were a networking person, you did networking. If you were a web designer, then you did web stuff. And now what we're seeing is a merger of those. It's not so much that you can't still have, say, a specialization, but those three areas are now overlapped where you need to at least have a good grounding and understanding of it. So especially with cloud development, because now it's not just a matter of, oh, somebody's going to deploy it on a server. Maybe there is no server because you have a serverless infrastructure. And so now you as the developer are actually running your pipeline to deploy it into whatever service on the cloud is. But that's still built and using, networking, network-based networking protocols. So you need to be a little bit more well-rounded now coming into the industry, because you will need to know some of these things as you're doing your development. So I guess that would be the thing that maybe jumps out at me, is that I wish I would have had the foresight to realize, which back then, I mean, cloud wasn't even in the mix, but now today, definitely having that understanding of, I need to have a good grounding in this area, even though I'm focusing on a different specialization.
Yeah, it's interesting how the computer programs at River have changed over the years, because our last speaker was from the CAP program, who was the follow-up to your program, and now we have a lot of BIT students. But what we do have also as part of our program is BTM, which is a relatively new program. It's Business Technology Management, and they get quite a bit of overlap with what we're doing, but they're a lot more focused on more almost project management side. So my next question is, how did you prepare to take leadership of early projects in your career when you were just transitioning from, first job or two to starting to be a more central leader figure?
Yeah, sure. One thing I want to clarify there is CAP actually was before IST.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, CAP has been around for a long time before IST was. IST was introduced I was in the second intake. So IST started in 99. CAP was initially created to produce developers in the Winnipeg marketplace that would be able to work on big mainframe systems that ran accounting software, which is why you had a lot of the advanced accounting courses in CAP, as well as you took things like RPG and COBOL and a lot of the mainframe type languages. And then when they brought IST, it was basically to say, hey, there's a lot more modern stuff. So instead of we still need CAP grads, so let's bring in IST, and then IST can kind of be more of that newer web networking side of things. And then eventually I think they both sort of merged, and then BIT sort of evolved out of that. So just some history anyway of sort of how that worked.
No, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So earlier on, the project management piece of it is also it's important. I don't know that necessarily you have to worry about graduating having a really crazy knowledge of PMI or any project management institute or any of that sort of thing. But I do think when I came out, it was very much sort of a ad hoc sort of way when you're managing things, right? Even with some of the first companies that I was with, I mean, it was very ad hoc, very not very organized. We didn't have proper project management techniques in place. And this was all sort of pre-Agile. Agile wasn't even really on the scene. And I think now there's a bit, and you can tell me if I'm wrong on this, Adam, but I think there's a bit more of an introduction with Azure practices in your courses right now.
Yes, yeah. I've already seen that. Yeah.
So if you're already coming out with having some of those base Agile concepts and working with those, you're already doing great. And then really it's just a matter of getting as much experience as you can so that you can fine tune those. And you're going to find that the way that you approach one project is going to be different than the way you approach another one. It used to be very much, waterfall, old school PMI is bad, Agile is really, really good. And what I've come to the conclusion of, and what actually some friends of mine who also had that sort of view, is that no, you know what? There's good pieces from the PMI side of things with waterfall, but then there's also really good things from the Agile side. And so it's a matter of having the experience and wisdom to know which of those pieces do you pull together for a given project, given all of the other things that are influencing what success looks like.
Great. I have a question here from Udavir. When we go into our fourth term, we have a choice between co-op work experience or industry project hosted at Red River. What are your thoughts? Is there a better one? Is there one
What is it?
Yeah.
Tell me a bit more about the industry event. How's that structured?
So my understanding is, and maybe I'll let someone who's been, because there are a few people who've done it already, is for a 4-month period, we essentially get a project to work on with others, and we'll actually have someone from the business technology management program manage a small team of business information technology students. Does anyone here want to speak to that who's been through it or who knows people? I know Rob and Dan are here, and they haven't done it, but they know people who have.
Rob and Dan are quiet.
I bet they're
Yeah,
scrambling.
I'm not 100% sure if there's anyone in here who did industry project. I think Chris may have, but I don't want to throw him on the fire. So
that's fine. I'll hop in here if you want me to. Yeah, no, that was a pretty close description. Yeah, you show up at the project space and you get put on a team of, depends on how many people are there. And yeah, a business management student will take over and kind of like run the project, and you'll meet with stakeholders and everything, and you'll work in the agile development. Yeah, I think you got a pretty good description there.
Okay. So I only know of like co-op work experience, right? We didn't have the industry event. I think what the co-op experience will give you is you're going to get a real world view of what it's like to work in the industry, obviously, right? The downside of that is you're going to get a real world view of what it's like to work in the industry. And depending on where you get your co-op is going to be a vastly different experience from where where somebody else gets their work experience in their co-op. I had a really great co-op. A buddy of mine ended up getting hired on at Great West Life, and all he did all day was convert XML documents. And when he was done, his work pile for the day, he was allowed to just like surf the web, and that's all that was asked for him, right? Meanwhile, I'm working on a wireless retail product. So you're still kind of rolling the dice there. The thing with the industry event, and the only thing I would hope to see, and I don't know enough about it, is you actually really need to have, hopefully, people from industry coming in, sitting in on those meetings, sitting in on those projects, and offering their guidance and their experience from what they've seen. Because it's one thing to read things in a textbook and do them. I noticed that object-oriented analysis and design is still on the is still part of the courseware. Is there a project that's part of that as well?
I can only speak to OOS analysis, but there's some small, very small projects. You work in a team of 3, like a week or 2.
Okay.
We're not really that course, at least as far as I've gone. We're not so much making a product; it's more the management side of it. So it's kind of more hypothetical. Like I did an assignment and. Our project, quote unquote, was organizing a tech lecture.
Oh, okay. Yeah. See, for ours, the way that it was structured, it was we would have a project, which was a big part of the second part of that course, and we would need to come up with an idea and then kind of go through the whole life cycle, but also manage it and set timelines and everything. And our instructor, though, that we had, there were 2 instructors that covered that, and both of them came from industry. And so it was really great because they were able to really impart sort of what their real world experiences were. So I guess that would be the only thing with the industry event is I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. I think it's a great way to get practice working in a team setting, but I'd hope that there'd be some industry people that come in and can at least give a bit of guidance as well. Just based on what they've experienced for the team.
Yeah. A question from Dan here. I have been applying for jobs and I see Agile everywhere.
Yeah.
I quick LinkedIn course about it, and I think I learn best by doing. How would you practice Agile?
Okay. I think what you start with is, and you're going to look at this website and literally all of you are going to be like, why are you sending me back to 1992? But I kid you not, this is where it all starts. is the manifesto, right? This is the whole thing was just what are the tenets of Agile? And it was these guys that went up to a cabin and came up with this list and said, yeah, these are the principles of Agile software. And then from that, what's happened with Agile is then you end up getting a whole bunch of different frameworks, right? Because people are like, oh, okay, that's great, but how do I apply it? I need a framework. I need some way to do it. And everything that Agile was sort of meant to do has now, you start seeing things like, and not necessarily bad. I know some places that have used it and have been good, but there's something called SAFe, which is like Structured Agile Framework for enterprise. I would start though with scrum.org. Scrum is sort of the, this would probably be like the starting place to, and don't worry so much about like the Scrum Master and certifications and stuff like that. But the idea of seeing sort of Agile applied within a framework, Scrum is probably the best place to start. I would also suggest start looking into Kanban. And so Kanban is another framework that's kind of used to implement Agile and DevOps software development. And a lot of times you'll see Kanban being used along with Scrum. So what you'll see is if you look at the manifesto, and it talks about what are the things that Agile software development values, right? And that's really what it is, right? People over processes and all that type of thing. And then if you look at Scrum and you look at Kanban, you can see how those tenets were applied into those frameworks. That'll give you a good basis on sort of what Agile is. Because to be honest, you can ask 10 different people what Agile development means or what it looks like, and you'll get 10 different answers. So I would say start here, and then this will get you going. That's a great question.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Dan. And he has another question for you. What if you have a co-op experience that is not directly related? I want to be a software developer, but my co-op was about project management. I did some web development at SharePoint, but that's not my primary role.
Yeah, I think with co-op, even if you got co-op and it's about project management, that's still a really valuable skill to have. If you said to me, I want to be a software developer, but my co-op is about just doing like calculations in Excel or something like that, then I'd say, okay, yeah, go talk to Dan Greenberg, who, by the way, was also scheduling co-ops when I was in college. And but if it's in project management, I would say eventually the skills of project management, you're going to need to apply those whether you're in software development or networking or whatever, whether that's you managing a full project of other people or whether that's you just managing your own tasks. Keep in mind that sometimes a project could just mean a project of one or a project of two. And so still having those concepts around how project management works, especially when it comes to the reporting side, because a lot of project management is reporting up to say, what's the status of the project? How are we doing? What's the budget? What's our burn down, or what's our updated ETA, all these sort of things. If you're going to get really great experience doing that, I would say that that's still really, really valuable. Yeah, it's not going to be software development, but you're getting like a few months of real world experience. Plus, once you're there, who knows? Maybe, if you let them know, look, I know I'm doing project management, but I really like software too, they might have an opportunity to get you doing some stuff as well. So, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to put out a quick, if you have a question, we're not quite at last call for questions, but this is be a time to get it in. And while you're thinking, I have a question.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about Prairie Devcon? I'm very interested in that because I know you've been doing it for 10 years now, and you're the founder. So kind of what is it? Why did you start it? And what has it become?
Yeah. So, back in 2009, I was working at a company here in Winnipeg called Prairie Devcon, and we saw a need in the prairies where technology conferences were happening in Toronto, in Montreal, in Vancouver, but that was kind of it. And also Manitoba and Saskatchewan were still sort of seen, more so Saskatchewan even back then, was seen as flyover provinces, right? So Microsoft, Oracle, any of the big players didn't really come here. It wasn't destinations. They focused on the big places. So I had pitched the idea to my work about why don't we start our own software conference here in Winnipeg? And that ended up being the SDEC conference, Software Development Evolution Conference, which I helped organize the first two before I left Protegra, and then Steve Rogalski and some others kept it going. But at the same time, I said, well, what about Regina? Are you guys interested in Regina? Because I had friends who were in Regina that I had met through, like I mentioned, my community connections. And they had a great technology community there. But again, they were just kind of starved for attention. Nobody was giving it. So my work was saying, well, we're not really interested in doing it in Regina, but if you want to do it on your own, go ahead. And so that's how I actually started Prairie Devcon. It was only going to be a conference in Regina. And then after I left Protegra, I ended up starting to do it in Winnipeg as well. And it was great because, I mean, I look over the years and we've been able to sort of put these prairie cities on the map and bring in these speakers that you normally would see in like an NDC London or, a Microsoft Build or some of these like large conferences in the US or overseas. They're coming to Winnipeg, they're coming to Regina, and they're speaking to people because they love the community as well. So it's been really good. It's been growing steadily. And once COVID's over, I'll be back in 22 putting them on.
Here's another question from Dan. While unemployed, what are the things I should be doing aside from making resumes, cover letters, and applying for jobs?
So, and I want to be careful with my response here because I think there's been quite a push in the industry around, do you need to do a lot of side projects in the evenings? Do you need to do a lot of extra work, off work hours, to sort of stay relevant in the industry? And I don't think that's true, but I do also think that if you're starting out in the industry, you have to build a bit of a reputation, and you have to, not even reputation, you have to build up a portfolio, right? So if there's opportunities, and especially Dan, I think you mentioned you like doing web development or software development. If you have opportunities to contribute to open source software that's out there, that's an easy way to be able to, and especially with GitHub and that's an easy way to make it easy for people to see the code you're writing and to see the projects that you're working on. I also think that starting to write blogs, that's one way that you can share information and just show people that you're a bit of a thought leader and share some of the things that you're doing, right? A lot of times when, like I mentioned, you're going to be doing a lot of Googling, and the things you're Googling in the search results, they're going to be blogs, they're going to be posts on Stack Overflow, they're going to be videos. So, if you can put some content out there that shows, hey, this is what I can do, here's how I'm helping, that's all great stories. And then things that you can also add to your resume as well. So, if you've got a lot of stuff in GitHub, like put your GitHub repository in your resume so that your potential employer can check that out.
Question here from Josh. What kind of side projects and certifications would you suggest for students to pursue?
I think to start, it would be based around the type of job that you want to get in, right? So, I mean, if you're wanting to do web development, then do side projects that show off how you're doing web development. If you want to get more into the networking side of things, look at that, right? If you can get involved with any sort of open source project or community projects that are going on, that's another way that you can not only build your network, but then also get some experience and get some material again for your portfolio that you can share with others. For certifications, so unless there's a certification that's really, really vital, I wouldn't worry about it just yet. Part of the reason is because certifications cost a lot of money, depending on the type that you're going for. And a lot of times, once you get hired at a place, if they're a good place with a training budget, they'll pay for you to go and get that certification if it's important to them. So yeah, I wouldn't worry about certifications just yet at this time.
Okay, so I'm going to ask this question, and then after this question, we'll call last call. So if you have a question, get it in right now. We're going to do two more. So second to last question is from Ayami, and she's asking, Ubisoft opening an office in Winnipeg was big news.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think Winnipeg will eventually be an enticing location to set up shop for other well-known big tech companies?
Eventually, yeah. I mean, I think it's kind of funny. I think Winnipeg in general sort of has this. We like to think we're a big city, but at the same time, we also have this sort of modesty. Like, you know, I wonder if another company is going to come and set up here. You know, I think that we've got some really successful companies that are here that that we should really be taking point of. I think I saw in the chat earlier somebody had mentioned about Bold. You know, Bold is an incredible success story for Winnipeg. Not just in terms of, you know, what they do and the number of people they employ, but you look at the investment dollars that they're bringing in. You look at Skip the Dishes, which is another great example of a Winnipeg-based company. I mean, that started in Winnipeg, and you know, the things that they're doing and how they've grown, and, you know, yeah, they're purchased by somebody else now, but there's a lot of really good, homegrown companies that are doing a lot of really good things. So, and I think that, you know, IQ Metrics, there's so many as well, actually, that are maybe not big, but they're poised that they could be big. One thing I guess maybe that I'd encourage is if you're interested in sort of seeing what's going on in the local scene, especially around startups and companies like that, Northforge is a great organization to get plugged into. If you're not, that's sort of our startup incubator community that's here in Winnipeg. I think that more companies will look at Winnipeg and kind of relocate here. It depends if it makes sense for the company, right? I think that we've got a lot of good homegrown stories, and we've got a good technology community that we can see even more companies sort of, you know, get big and grow from here as well.
It was speaking of Bold, there was just a story a week or so ago of Bold hiring a bunch of new people. They're obviously still growing. We'll say our last question of the day. This is from Rob. I found I learned a lot by pair coding. Do you have any tips for starting pair programming projects with friends to prevent interpersonal issues from popping up, or even tools aside from like GitHub, stuff like that?
What do you mean by interpersonal issues?
Like conflicts. Is that what you're thinking of, Rob? Do you want to maybe talk and speak better?
Yeah, that would be. Sorry, I've got I'm going through my work VPN, so I'm at about 4,000 millisecond ping right now. But yeah, just, you know, like making sure that the project keeps going forward, that you can keep learning, and that you're still friends at the end, that you don't have maybe different expectations out of how likely it is to succeed or how much work you're putting in.
I mean, I guess I think like anything, if you're thinking about like, you know, you want to avoid fights or something like that, I mean, it's really about setting those expectations up front. You know, make sure that you're pair programming with somebody who you know you can pair with, I guess. Usually when I see people that are doing pair programming together, it's usually been either people that work together really well, or they're a little bit in like a mentor-mentee relationship where there's somebody who's got more experience who's coming alongside somebody with lesser experience. But typically too, what I see in that is that the mentor ends up learning things as well. Now, when you're saying pair coding, are you talking about pair programming where you're both coding at the same time? Or are you talking about like somebody works on one thing for a bit, sets it down, and somebody picks it up? Because I think that'll depend on it too. Like when I hear pair programming, I'm thinking two people sitting there, one keyboard, and they're both working through a program together.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking of a more COVID-friendly version where maybe screen sharing or things like that. But
oh, okay, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think. I mean, even instead of GitHub. Oh, actually, you know what? Isn't there? Oh, there's actually. Here, I will. There's a couple of different things that you can. Oh, do I want to share this one or do I want to share a different one? Maybe it's code share. There's a way that you can actually share things in real time, and if you do like a search for this, Rob, like just code sharing, there's new tools out there now where like you can both be in an interactive window together, but with video, and then you're able to like work on it in that way. Microsoft had something as well, and there's a couple of other services, so that might be something to look at as well.
Okay, well, we're going to call it a day. Thank you so much,
All right, thank you,
Darcy. Quick question. Would any of our members here be able to connect with you on LinkedIn if they have any more questions? I know a couple people have some more questions for you.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, absolutely. Just find me on LinkedIn. Go ahead and message us to connect, and happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you so much. This has been really fantastic. I want to apologize for the camera situation that we couldn't see each other. I'm very sorry about that, but this is a good problem to have.
Yeah, no, that's all good.
Yeah, our events have grown since last time, and this is really wonderful. But we're going to let you go. Thank you so much, Darcy. I'm going to post your information here on the chat if that's all right.
Yeah, absolutely. Please do.
And I think you'll definitely get some connection requests. But thank you so much. Thank you for doing this and sharing all your fantastic knowledge with us.
My pleasure. Thanks, everybody, and good luck with the rest of your Red River programming there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And for everyone else who is still here, we're going to be doing things a little differently. We typically have a meeting every Monday at 2 to 3 p.m. at this time slot we're currently in. What we're going to be doing next Monday, this upcoming Monday, we're going to have a brief little meeting that's open for everyone, and that would be a great time if you have any comments or criticisms to share about events such as this, so we can do it better every time. We're going to have a quick, brief meeting about what we're working on, what we want to do in the future, and then we're just going to hang out and play some games together. I'll throw up a post. We had our executive member, Delaney, here mention that when the Bits and Bytes Association was in person, they would often have an open meeting where you could just talk about what you wanted to see, what you don't want to see anymore, and then they would hang out and play games, and everyone gets to know each other a little better. So we're going to be doing that next Monday, a quick little 10, 15-minute meeting, and then play some games together. So everyone is welcome. Tell your friends. Anyone in Red River, doesn't matter the program, is of course welcome to be in our club. And I want to thank everyone so much who helped put this together. Big thank you to Justin. He was the one who got me in connection with Darcy. So thank you very much, Justin. Thank you all the executives who helped organize and set this up. And we will do some hard thinking about how to do cameras properly next time. But I'm glad that we maxed out the room. That's a good problem to have. So thank you. I hope you'll come on Monday for a little meeting and just to hang out and get to know each other. Everyone have a great day, and we'll talk to you later.